Today, Bungie put out their developer insight for ability and armor changes coming in Season 22. And we're going to give this a quick read as we are a build crafting channel. That's what I started with. So we're going to read through this as there might be some good things for us to read. There might be some negative things for us to read. So starting with exotic armor. In Season 22, we will be rolling out the second wave of changes to exotic armor, following up the first wave of changes that went out at the start of Season 21. We settled on one primary goal for this balance pass: bolster underused exotics. We took a look at several exotics that weren't seeing any usage in any game mode and targeted those for buffs around this time. In the process of doing so, we identified a few previously changed exotics that needed further tweaks. Across the board, these changes are largely positive and should make the exotics more useful and more powerful. With that in mind, here are the changes we are making. Please note, unless otherwise specified, the following changes leave the rest of the exotics benefits intact. Taking a look at Hunters first, Knucklehead Radar. The functionality of the Foe Tracer exotic helmet has been completely removed from that exotic and added to Knucklehead Radar on top of its existing benefits. So, it sounds like Knucklehead Radar is going to retain its always having a radar and having it be enhanced, and now it's getting the targeting and damage against those targeted enemies, which is pretty cool. Foe Tracer. We took some cues from the popular monochromatic Maestro artifact perk for this one. When you deal damage with one of your abilities, you gain a damage bonus with that weapon that have damage types matching your subclass damage type. Additionally, when you defeat an enemy you've damaged with one of your abilities, either with another ability or with a weapon with a damage type matching your subclass, you will spawn one of the collectible objects associated with your subclass, such as ionic traces or fire sprays. Okay, so it sounds like, again, if you damage something with, like, for example, a firebolt grenade and then defeat them with a callous mini tool, they're going to drop a fire spray. So that's pretty good. That can play heavily into the elemental charge perk. That one seems pretty good. I'm kind of excited for that. Lucky Raspberry. This exotic was a little too unreliable in its current form, so we've taken a crack at streamlining its energy gains while leaving some of its benefits intact. The exotic still expands the chaining capability of arc bolt grenades, but now instead of basing the grenade energy gains on those chains, each time you damage an enemy with lightning strikes from the jolted condition, as well as each time you pick up an ionic trace, you gain additional grenade energy. We've also given this grenade the intrinsic ability to stun overload champions. Now you don't have to jolt them and then trigger the lightning jolting strikes to stun them, making these grenades a more reliable tool against overload champions. This is really good. I actually wanted to make a Lucky Raspberry build this season, but it was just overshadowed by Shinobu's Vow, which was my last video, so this is huge. I actually might try Lucky Raspberry next time we're in an arc meta. And finally, for the hunters, we have Renewal Grasp. We've undone the previous nerf to Dustfield grenade cooldowns when using this exotic. Fantastic. Now we won't have to wait 10 million years for our Dustfield grenades to come back, and I know a lot of stasis hunters that like to use this exotic in higher end content, and they're going to really enjoy being able to bust these out and dust them off again and actually have them be useful. Moving on to Titans with Icefall Mantle, Doomfang Pauldrons, Path of the Burning Steps, and Eternal Warrior. Season 21 included some changes to Eternal Warrior and the Path of the Burning Steps. We added an escalating damage bonus to arc and solar weapons respectively when you get kills with those damage types. We liked that this gave players another way to get surge-like bonuses, but the Eternal Warrior seemed to have the most reliable way to get up to the tier 4 damage bonus. We've made some further changes to these perks to make them a little more reliable, while also expanding the functionality to 2 other exotics. Okay, so they're going to be a lot easier to trigger that tier 4 damage boost, and Doomfang Pauldron and Icefall Mantles are going to have the same effect given to them, I assume for Stasis and Void respectively, meaning you can get that tier 4 damage boost with Doomfang Pauldrons and also get your super energy back the way it works now, which is actually going to be really good, and I'm really excited for Doomfang Pauldrons. ACDCO Feedback Fence. This exotic got a complete mechanical rework and now ties into the armor charge system, increasing its versatility and making it more useful in scenarios where you might not be taking a lot of melee damage. With the new perk, which completely replaces the old, when melee hits give you an armor charge, you take reduced melee damage while you have that armor charge. Taking melee damage causes you to emit a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets, consuming your armor charge and dealing more damage based on the number of stacks consumed. Note that the damage by the burst of arc energy should be comparable to its current damage for 0 to 3 stacks of armor charge. Okay, that's pretty cool. It gives you an ability, more like a defensive way to use your armor charge stacks. That's pretty cool. Hollow Fire Heart. This one might be exciting. This exotic often stands in the shadow of the more ubiquitous Heart of Inmost Light, To remedy that, we've removed its base energy to solar abilities and replaced it with a perk that will let you build more into sunspots. We think you'll be seeing more sunspots on the battlefield as a result. As for this perk that greatly increases your ability to regenerate when your super is fully charged, we left that as is. So it's still going to give you the super energy, or it's still going to give you the ability to regenerate while your super is full, and we're going to be making a ton of sunspots. I loved Hollow Fire Heart. Hollow Fire Heart was one of the first Solar Titan builds I made that actually got me my first 500 view on a video, which was honestly really good to see back then, and it's still good to see now. So I'm really excited for this. I love Hollow Fire Heart, and I've always said that it's really good, but it does stand in the shadow of Heart of Inmost Light, like most Titan exotics. Most Titan exotics just are completely overshadowed by Heart of Inmost Light, but this gives it a unique perk that actually sounds pretty interesting. For Warlocks, we're going to start with Astrocyte Verse. We've added 2 more pieces of functionality to this exotic. When you blink, the enemies near you when you reappear will be volatile. You can then leap away, triggering a series of explosions when you fire upon them. Additionally, when you're using the Nova Warp Super, the Dark Blink ability no longer consumes super energy. Holy hell, that is 2 really just small kind of changes, but the way that they play into each other, that's really good. I'm not an Astrocyte Verse guy. I don't like Blink, but that's going to be awesome for people that do, and that actually is genuinely exciting. Geomag Stabilizers. While we've often heard the calls to restore the perk that lets you top off your super energy by sprinting, the legacy of that incentive still creates a pretty silly play patterns. That is true. Instead, we wanted to give players a way to get more super energy no matter how charged their super is. Now picking up Ionic Trace while wearing this exotic will grant Guardians additional super energy. That's not bad. That's going to help Chaos reach out a little bit. Wings of Sacred Dawn. Leaning into the orbital weapons platform fantasy, we wanted to help players have a way to stay aloft longer, especially in target-rich PvE environments. Typically, reloading was the main cause for the float to end. This exotic now automatically reloads solar weapons, including the weapon you are holding from reserves each time you get a kill while aiming down sights. Try this one with Xenophage. Yeah, that sounds kind of disgusting, actually. Winter's Guile. Due to the nature of Stasis Warlock's melee ability, this exotic was previously a disappointing choice for that subclass. We've added a new perk for this one, specifically for when you are playing with your Stasis subclass. Now combatants encased by your Penumbral Blast melee will automatically shatter after a short delay. That's also pretty cool. I have a feeling we're going to be in for a Stasis meta next season because they've buffed Winter's Guile, they made changes to Icefall Mantle, and they removed the nerfs off of Dustfield Grenades and Renewal Grasps. Normally, when they make changes like that to 3 specific exotics that specifically play around a specific subclass, odds are we're looking for that in the next season. So I'm actually excited for that. Stasis has taken the back seat since Strand came out, so I'm going to assume it's going to be Arc, Void, and Strand, or Arc, Solar, and Stasis. I don't know why I said Strand, but it's probably going to be Arc, Solar, and Stasis because it takes the one from the previous, adds one we haven't had last season, and then a Darkness one. So odds are Arc, Solar, Stasis. That's going to be pretty cool. As with any changes we make, we're going to be watching this data and your feedback carefully, and we may make additional tuning changes accordingly. We're already working on the next round of exotic armor tuning for future seasons, so stay tuned. I love that they're changing these exotics. There are some that I still want to see changed, but obviously we have to wait. All of these seem pretty exciting, and I'm pretty excited to make builds for them. Moving on to the abilities preview. Hey folks, Combat Gameplay team here to run through the ability changes coming with Season 22 later this month. Before we get into the actual changes, let's go over our goals for this release. Reduce the uptime and potency in barricade abilities, particularly in high-level PvP activities. Reduce the potency of Striker Titan in high-level PvP activities, both in neutral game and when supers come up. Correct the one-size-fit-all nature of Suspend in the combat sandbox, and rebalance our Strand Fragment suite to bring up some underperforming options and normalize the potency of overperformers. So I'm just going to read through the bullet points for this one. So starting with barricades, towering barricades. Base cooldown increased from 48 to 70 seconds. That's a bit much. All barricades, maximum health reduced from 600 to 500. Damage resistance versus PvE combatants increased to compensate. I would like to know how much. It's crazy. Thunder Crash increased base cooldown time from 500 seconds to 556 seconds, matching the majority of our roaming super roster. Thunder Crash is annoying in PvP, however, it was a one-off super. People got it maybe once or twice. The problem isn't with its cooldown. The problem was with how many people are running the damn thing. Knockout reduced damage bonus versus players from 50 to 30. Thank the Lord. I hate knockout so much, and it's so good to see this finally get nerfed. I still think it's going to be very strong because it's health regeneration, but the reduction in damage is going to be very nice. Suspend. Reduced base suspend duration versus non-champion PvE combatants from 8 to 5 seconds. Thread of continuity now extends its duration to 7 seconds, down from 12 seconds. Reduce the suspend duration versus champion combatants from 8 seconds to 3 seconds. 4 with thread of continuity. Increase snap damage dealt against suspended bosses by 67%. That's wild. So instead of bringing up our other control the field subclass with stasis, they're bringing down suspend by a significant amount. The increased damage is nice, but everybody used suspend just do with champions and stuff, and now that's not going to be the case. You're going to have to melt them super fast or have another suspend on standby. This really hurts the fact that suspend is good for unstoppable champions, but hopefully there are some other things that make this a little better. Thread of mind. Reduce class energy gain based on the tier of the defeated target. Minor combatants reduced from 15 to 10. Major combatants and players reduced from 25 to 15. Bosses, champions, and mini-bosses reduced from 50 to 25. Yeesh, that's wild as well. It's still going to be good. It's still going to be a 10% game each time you defeat a suspended target, so that's not bad. Thread of generation, this is the big one. Reduce the overall energy gain per damage event against PV enemies by 20%. So we're going to see a 20% reduction each time this goes off. Rebalance the energy gain multiplier across primary weapon archetypes. We wanted to bring the energy gains for dealing damage with precision weapons and fully automatic weapons closer together. Okay, so this is kind of a buff, I guess, to like hand cannons and stuff versus like SMGs. That's also not horrible. Overall, we've reduced the efficiency of fully automatic primary weapons, increased the efficiency of precision primary weapons to compensate. So basically, like I just said. Threadlings. Increased threadling damage versus PvE combatants by 30%. Tangles. Reduced tangle creation cooldown from 15 to 12. Sever. PvE combatants affected by Sever now have their outgoing damage reduced by 40 versus 30. Not bad. Literally buffing every other aspect of our strand subclasses, so that's okay. Silk Strike. Increase Silk Strike damage resistance from 40 to 45%. It's not enough. Reduce suppression time between Silk Strike super air attacks. Reduce the vertical lift provided by Silk Strike's heavy air attack to reduce instances of missing the primary target. Okay, that's not bad. Threaded Spectre. Increase the Threaded Spectre lifetime from 10 to 12 seconds. Increase Threaded Spectre health versus PvE combatant. Threaded Spectre now takes longer to detect nearby PvE combatants at the beginning of its lifetime. PvE combatants now more consistently focus Threaded Spectre instead of the Hunter. Allied players no longer have reticle magnetism towards the Threaded Spectre. Also pretty good changes. The Wanderer. Destroying a tangle now creates a delayed suspending detonation. Increase suspend detonation radius from 6 to 7 meters against PvE combatants. Increase the Wanderer tangle detonation damage to match standard tangle detonations. Also not bad. Sucks that they're nerfing suspend for this to actually get a bigger suspend radius. Grapple. Grapple melee always takes priority while active, regardless of whether or not a target was within range. Not bad. Thread of propagation now grants plus 10 strength. Thread of continuity no longer grants the plus 10 strength. Thread of Wisdom no longer requires a precision kill to activate. Thread of Isolation reduce the number of precision hits acquired to activate by an average of 30%. Varies by weapon archetype. Thread of Rebirth. The number of creative threadlings now increase based on the tier of defeated targets. Minor combatants are 1, elite combatants or player are 2, bosses, champions, or mini-bosses are 3. These are all some pretty okay ability changes. I still think the suspend stuff's a little hard. If this is 100%, I would like to have it put down to 50%, like that in between of where we were and where we are now, because it's not going to feel as good. This is one of those things that should have been a gradual nerf, but whatever. All this is coming in Season 22, and some changes too. Tune in on launch day for a full list of changes and bug fixes, including a fix for Celestial Fire Scorch not activating melee perks like Sunbracers. That's pretty nice. While Season 2 is getting locked in, we're working on a suite of Season 23 changes as well. We'll have more to share about Season 23 at a later date, but in the meantime, we'll be keeping an eye out for feedback on all these changes for Season 22. So, my biggest thing is, again, we're looking at a stasis meta probably coming next season. A lot of the exotic reworks actually have me genuinely excited, mostly like Doomfang Pauldron, Astrocyte Verse, even though I don't use Astrocyte Verse and Foe Tracer, those are all looking really juicy. So I'm going to be looking at those specifically next season, probably at the start for builds. Suspend is basically getting the stasis treatment for freeze. Like, good luck. It's going to be a lot harder, but it's still going to be usable. So with that is the full article for the abilities and armor preview. So if you liked it, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. I'm probably going to be doing this a little more often towards the end of the season, namely with TWABs and things like this, as this is where the juicy stuff starts happening. So with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.